As Muslims, we don't have loyalties to where we've been bought and bred. We have loyalties to Islam and the Muslims. That's where our priority and our loyalties lie. So I believe that my loyalties, even though I've been born and bred in England, my loyalties and priorities lie with the Muslims.
This is the concept of Ummah, the global community in which all Muslims are brothers and sisters. For jihadi sympathisers, it's used to justify almost any kind of violence in retaliation for the suffering of fellow Muslims. For moderate Muslims, such justification is a perversion of their faith.
Ummah is attractive for a number of reasons. They're connected in a way that they've never been able to connect with anyone ever before. They also feel a strong sense of identity. Well, this is who we are, this is what we're about. We have a voice, we have a dress code, we have a certain set of ways that, set of rules and guidelines in which we carry ourselves on a day-to-day basis.
There are elements in the Quran, just like there's elements in the Torah, and just like there's elements in the Old Testament that are about conflict, that can be used to justify racial supremacy, cultural supremacy. There's chapters and elements in the Torah about racial supremacy of one race over another. There's things in the Old Testament that are not exactly a John Lennon record.
What we have from the seven heavens is the Quran, the word of God, the actual word of God, revealed to the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Relying on the literal word of the Quran is the trademark of radical Muslim groups like Al-Muhajirun. It was banned in 2006. Some of the extremist preachers associated with it were thrown out of Britain. It then changed its name to Islam for UK. That too has recently been banned. It caused outrage by staging stunts involving British soldiers returning from Afghanistan.
By asking him to come into your life.
Abu Raya from East London joined 4 years ago and was seen as one of the group's leading voices.
You can't prove to me the Bible is the word of God, but we can prove to you the Quran here. Yeah, in Peckham we can prove to you that the Quran is the word of God. If radical means supporting your Muslim brothers, if radical means attending Islamic talks and learning about Islam, which is obligation on every single Muslim, if you mean radical, then yes, I become radical. Allahu Akbar.
This group had a tiny membership. Its core message was rejected by the vast majority of Britain's Muslims.
The British people, they are solely responsible for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are responsible for 7/7 and they are responsible indirectly for 9/11 because they are the people who voted these people in. They were happy with occupying Muslim land. And if you throw a brick at someone's house, you would expect a brick back at you. You know what I mean?
Such views could be dismissed as the wild fantasies of a lunatic fringe, but they still excited powerful emotions.
Taking the piss out of our Calm down, calm down. No, I'm asking you, right?
You
start swearing. Yeah. Calm down. Go back to Islam, right? Preach your Allah. Yeah, well, go back over there, preach your own stuff over there, right? Not in this country.
But the uncomfortable truth is that almost every British Muslim convicted of terrorism offences has at one time been influenced by groups like this.
You know what I mean?
I find it really difficult to talk about Al-Muhajirun in the context of them being Muslims, okay? They're fascists, yeah? They're fascists, they're exploitative, they are no different, okay, than the BNP or the English Defence League, yeah? And I think it is incredibly dangerous to give them the credence, yeah, of them being Muslims.
Radicalism, however offensive, isn't the same as terrorism. So what turns an angry young man into a potential murderer? The young of Generation Jihad often share a similar profile: isolated, empty, and lacking a purpose in life. Umar Abdul Muttalib, who tried to bomb a plane over Detroit on Christmas Day, revealed such emotions when he posted them as a schoolboy on the internet.
I feel depressed and lonely. I do not know what to do. I imagine how the great jihad will take place, how the Muslims will win and rule the whole world.
Where Abdul Muttalib failed, Jamal Lindsay succeeded. Lindsay was one of the 4 young Muslims who bombed London on 7/7. In the years before the attacks, he displayed many of the weaknesses and family problems on which radicalisers and recruiters prey. Lindsay was born in Jamaica and never knew his father. His mother, Mariam, brought him to live in Huddersfield, where she converted to Islam. At the age of 15, Lindsay converted too.
When I met him at the age of 16, he was alone, and really the Muslim community was his family. And we were a family, I think, who were very supportive, and I think whilst he was with us for, the time that he was in our community, felt that his needs were being met, felt that he had the emotional support, the physical support, the practical support, was being instructed correctly in terms of his understanding of Islam.
Converts tend to sort of gravitate towards each other, and so we tend to sort of say, oh, hi, kind of thing.
Will Valla, another convert to Islam, got to know Lindsay through a mosque in Leeds.
What was he like? How did Jamal Lindsay strike you at that time?
He seemed very friendly, pleasant, asking how people were, smiling, seemed quite a calm person, to be honest.
But Lindsay was a damaged young man with deep grievances, and it was his mother Mariam who inadvertently set her son on the road that ended so tragically.
2 weeks after their conversion, Mariam took Jamal to a mosque to hear a lecture by Sheikh Abdullah Al-Faisal. She says that he was probably attracted to Faisal because he was black and he came from Jamaica. That's probably how Jamal's radicalisation began.
So how do you fight the Hindus? You have to bomb the Indian businesses. And as for the Jews, you kill them physically. Then you will overcome them in Kashmir and in Palestine.
As well as knowing Lindsay, Alias Kamani has met and interviewed many young Muslims convicted under terrorism legislation. Lindsay's family history was not unusual.
9 out of 10 young men that I work with, when I ask them a question, a standard question, tell me about the relationship with your father. And most of them will tell me, well, I don't really have much of a relationship with my father. Yes, I respect him, but I don't really have an open relationship with him in terms of I can express my feelings. So as a result of that, an individual has a gap in their life in terms of who is my role model, who is, and almost, I suppose, a search for a father figure. And in particular, a compassionate senior male role model. Sometimes extremist recruiters actually play that particular role.
The person who hates kufr, hates the infidels, and he wants to meet his Lord, the person who carries out this operation, from the first drop of his blood, all his sins are forgiven.
Sheikh Faisal Abdullah seems to have become the role model for Jamal Lindsay, who by 2001 was a teenager living alone in Huddersfield. Abu Osama is another controversial imam who once studied with Sheikh Faisal in Saudi Arabia before Faisal came to Britain.
He was a quiet, reserved, soft-spoken individual, but when he came to this country, the one-eyed man is a giant in the land of the blind, and he became the monster that he became a few years ago. Many of the younger Arabs and Asians who grew up in this country, they also relate to people like Faisal because they had a time in their life when they were not necessarily Muslims or practicing Islam. They were in the streets. They were engaged in narcotics. They were engaged in the nightlife. So to see a person like Faisal coming from that background as well and then getting himself together, so to speak, and becoming a Muslim, I think that also causes there to be a sense of camaraderie.
It's thought that it was in Sheikh Faisal's study groups that Lindsay first met Mohammed Sadiq Khan, the leader of the cell that went on to bomb London. Gradually, Lindsay began to withdraw from the mainstream Muslim community in West Yorkshire.
He goes off the radar. he disappears for a period of time. We have a whole range of vulnerabilities and insecurities.